On today's episode of What's That Fish, we are going to take a look at the Barracuda. Hey, whoa, no. Cut that out. They're going to demonetize the video for that. Sorry. Several of our previous What's That Fish episodes have covered fish species that have like really cool, unusual features that you'd never know just from looking at them. Well, the Barracuda is, seriously, I said stop, no, we'll get like a channel strike for that. You can't put that in. Sorry. The Barracuda has really nothing hidden. What you see is what you get, and what you see is top flight predator. These guys don't subsist on plankton or seagrass or little bottom feeding crustaceans. No, they eat other fish, and they're really well built for it. So they have a mouthful of nasty teeth, a couple of big pointy canines at the front that will lock onto whatever their prey is, and then multiple rows of very sharp cutting teeth along the side of the mouth. They will essentially hit the center of a prey fish, cut it into, like, cut the middle of it out, eat that, and then come back and eat up the head section and the tail section in turn. And the way that they hunt is essentially ambush predation. They will wait around very calmly until they spot something that they decide looks tasty, and then they have a very strong swimming tail fin in conjunction with a very hydrodynamic body that allows them to essentially sprint underwater. In the blink of an eye, a barracuda can move an incredible distance. They accelerate very quickly, and they essentially just sprint too fast for anything to dodge them. There are more than 20 different subspecies of barracuda. Most of them will exhibit schooling behavior, kind of like this. The great barracuda, which is probably the best known and best recognized of the whole bunch, they get to be the biggest. They can grow up to 2 meters or 6.5 feet long. And when they are adults, they tend to be independent solo fish. Most of the other subspecies will exhibit schooling behavior, as do juvenile great barracuda. Barracuda prefer relatively warm, relatively shallow water. They're very much tropical reef fish, and you will find them virtually everywhere in the world that there is this sort of tropical reef recreational diving. So very common for scuba divers to encounter them. One of the natural questions that, of course, comes up is, are barracuda dangerous to scuba divers? And the answer is yes, but also no, and frankly, there's some nuance and some context required. Barracuda bites are usually not life-threatening, but they certainly can be. They have very sharp teeth, and if they hit you in an area with large blood vessels, they could absolutely cause a fatal injury, and barracuda do periodically attack divers. However, it's usually because the divers are doing something profoundly stupid, like trying to feed them, or they are barracuda that have gotten acclimated to being fed by humans, and if you reach your hand out to show that you don't have anything for them to eat, they may very well just interpret that as that hand looks like something perfectly appropriate to eat and take your hand off. In addition, barracuda can often really weird out divers because they can be very curious fish. They see divers in the water and they want to know what it is we're up to. And, this is something novel that they don't normally see swimming around in their territory, and so they will often shadow divers. They'll swim alongside you, they'll watch you, they'll do things that can be interpreted by humans as pretty darn creepy and worrying, but usually this is just because they are curious. Now, they are attracted, at least in part, to flashy, shiny, sparkly things that, look like flashing fish scales. And there are definitely legitimate reports of divers being attacked for flashy jewelry, flashing reflective gear, that sort of thing. So the best way to be safe around barracuda, which, by the way, you are virtually always safe around barracuda if you follow these recommendations, is don't feed them, don't chase them, don't antagonize them, don't try to touch them. Frankly, treat them like you would treat a large wild cat. How would you handle encounter with a bobcat? You don't need to run in terror from a bobcat, but you also don't want to go over and try to pet it. And that's probably pretty good advice for swimming alongside Barracuda. They are curious. They may very well be interested in what you're up to, but if you maintain a few basic safety precautions, you really don't have anything to fear from them. Perhaps ironically, the most likely way for you to be harmed by a barracuda is by you eating the barracuda. This is a species of fish that is known to accumulate Ciguatera poisoning. That's a neurotoxin that's actually developed by some algae species on coral reefs. Those algae are eaten by smaller fish, which are in turn eaten by the barracuda, and this is a neurotoxin that bioaccumulates up the food chain. Now, it doesn't actually injure the barracuda, it doesn't have any ill effects for the fish themselves, but in humans, it can cause some fairly serious neurotoxic symptoms. And for this reason, in the United States, barracuda is not considered an edible fish. The FDA prohibits its sale on the commercial market. However, they are eaten relatively widely in other parts of the Caribbean, and unfortunately, this is a toxin that is not removed or fixed essentially through freezing or through cooking. Like, this isn't a bacteria, it's not a fungus, it is actually a neurotoxin and can be quite dangerous, can have some quite ill effects. So best case, in addition to don't feed the barracuda, is don't feed upon the barracuda. I'm Ian McCollum. Make sure to tune back in next week for another exciting episode of Deep Dive with Ian. Thanks for watching.